Hi, everyone. This is Brian Lisenby from Lisenby Immigration Law, and I'm talking to you all today about the second EB-1 criteria found in 8 CFR 204.5 H3II, which reads documentation of someone's membership in associations in the field for which classification is sought, which require outstanding achievements of their members as judged by recognized national or international experts in their disciplines or fields. This is a very difficult EB-1 criteria, in my opinion. And really, at the core of this criteria is really one central issue for USCIS, and that's whether the membership that you're a member of required that you possess outstanding contributions in your field in order to become a member. And I'll tell you what, whenever I get an RFE for this criteria or we receive any pushback from the service, it's usually about that central issue. Sometimes they'll issue RFEs about other issues, things like whether or not it was actually judged by internationally or nationally recognized experts in your field, what their qualifications were. Sometimes they'll want to see the certificate of your membership. They want to know whether or not you had to pay dues to become a member, how long you're a member, things like that. Most of the time, if they're pushing back on this criteria, it really comes down to that central issue of whether or not it actually required that you possess outstanding contributions in order to become a member. And that really limits things. I think that really restricts the number of memberships that are available to people that really work for this criteria. But there's still some good options out there, depending on the field, that you can join and become a member of and succeed with this criteria. Um, Other questions that I've seen USCIS ask, or that I think the officers are thinking about when they're reviewing this criteria, are things like, is the organization that you're a member of, is it prestigious or is it a selective organization? Is it just a networking group? Is it a group that possesses high standards? Or is it just a group that was created by a few people who are just getting together to talk and socialize and network, and it doesn't really pursue the standards that the group actually has? Other questions that we need to ask is, how exclusive is the membership? How is the membership related to your area of expertise? Very critical. If you're an artist, you should be a member of an association of artists. If you're a software engineer, a member of an engineering group. A scientist, something with scientists. If it's unrelated to what you're pursuing or what you're doing, it's not really going to work. Were you invited to join the membership? Did you apply yourself? Um, and other things like that. The way that my clients often will resolve those questions and resolve those concerns is by providing really good evidence. And some of those evidentiary things can include things such as documentation that you've been invited into the elite membership, documentation of the prestige of the organization, guild, or association, documentation of the membership standards slash criteria. Super important, especially I almost always ask my clients to provide the bylaws from the organization. I know not all organizations possess those things, and the bylaws don't always spell out what the standards are for the memberships. But if the bylaws state that the membership requires outstanding contributions to become a member, then usually we have a strong argument. That's really foundational for this criteria most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. In the absence of something like that, a letter from one of the people who reviewed your profile stating that part of the selection process requires outstanding contributions can go a long ways. And obviously, a lot of times the bylaws won't specifically state things the way that the USCIS criteria is written, and that wouldn't really make sense anyways. So you have to select that portion of the bylaws that states that outstanding contributions are required, how it states that, and then you need to make that really obvious to the USCIS adjudicators. Proof of your membership is something you want to provide, obviously. Something with your name. It's usually a card with your name on it or a screenshot of your online profile. Um, A letter from the membership committee stating the criteria used to select you for the membership. That's a great item that you can provide. Information about the reputation of the organization itself, that's a distinguished organization. And you want third party evidences. You don't want things from the organization itself saying that they're prestigious, internationally known. You want things from other sources. Internet sources can be great, news sources, clips from people talking about the organization. Profiles of distinguished members can really help um, because USCIS is going to want to know it's distinguished from people other than themselves. That it can't be self-fulfilling criteria. Um, you want a list of other impressive members and their achievements that really, really can help, especially members who possess the same membership category as you do. Media coverage regarding the organization, exclusivity evidence. So if there's 40,000 members worldwide and only 400 possess your level of membership, you want to provide that information. You want to provide that evidence that less than 1% of the members even get to that level. Um, the more, because, and this is central to EB-1 in general, when you're trying to prove that you meet EB-1, you're trying to prove that you have risen to the top of your field of expertise and that you possess sustained national or international acclaim. And if you can prove that you've risen to the top of your membership, that you possess sustained international and national acclaim, and that was part of the reviewing process to prove that you possess that notoriety, that really, really helps you to win that criteria. So that's a key part of your argument and your petition stating that you meet the membership criteria. Evidence proving members come from a national or international pool, that it's not a regional membership, that it's not a membership exclusive to a certain part of California or a certain part of South Africa. You really want an international or national group of experts who are members in your organization that you're a member of. Um, Evidence of the organization's structure can be really helpful if it's available. And then evidence which describes the organization's or association's goals or mission. And that goes a long way because USCIS ultimately wants to see that you're receiving your I-140 and that the receipt of that will be something that merits the United States and benefits this country. And so when you can provide evidence that this organization that you're a part of has goals that help the United States move forward in whatever your field is, that can go a long way to helping the adjudicator look more favorably upon your petition as well. Um, Major red flags with this criteria, in my opinion, start with you having to buy your way into the membership. Now, a lot of memberships require dues and fees. That doesn't mean you can't be a membership of a due-paying organization to receive this criteria. But if that's really the only criteria, if you buy your way into EB-1, USCIS is going to have major issues with something like that. Um, Other things that can be red flags or don't really work would be when you're a lower level member of an organization. So let's say there's like a student member, a normal member, a senior level member, and then a fellow at an organization. If you're a regular member and you're trying to argue that that works for EB-1 when there's a senior level and a fellow level above you, that can be a really hard argument. Or another example would be if you're a fellow and there's a distinguished fellow, that can be difficult. Now, obviously, that's not always going to be an issue because sometimes distinguished fellow is like the top 0.05%, fellow is the top 5%. If you focus on that top percentile and you can show that that means you're at the top of your field, it can still work. You just might have to explain that to USCIS. Memberships that typically won't work are things like trade unions, provincial organizations, memberships solely based on your number of years of experience or your employment at a certain company in your field of expertise, memberships based on a fixed amount of education or experience, memberships based on test scores or certifications or your grade point average, memberships based on colleague or member recommendations only. When when you just have to have somebody recommend you for that membership, that usually won't work. Um, or associations that determine membership at a local or chapter level. USCIS really wants your membership to be determined at a national or an international level. So you want to be careful and just going out and paying for a bunch of memberships to help your EB1. You really want things that are going to show that you're at the top of your field, that you really do possess sustained international and national acclaim. And your memberships should reflect that when you're arguing this criteria for EB1. Please remember when you're going after the EB1 criteria for memberships that not everything will work. I think one thing that I see a lot of people try to argue is in the tech field specifically, a lot of people will try to argue that their senior IEEE membership works for EB1 criteria. It's pretty well established at this point that USCIS doesn't buy that argument. So why is that a bad thing to include in your petition? In my mind, I think, wow, this is great. You're a senior member at IEEE, super prestigious group of people, very great organization, extremely helpful for publishing, reviewing the work of others, and progressing your field in general. I would really generally expect most software engineers or people working in various fields accepted by that membership to be members and to be actively participating. But USCIS views it as something that creates an RFE because they think that's for lower level members. And so sometimes it's not even worth including a weak criteria in your petition because USCIS is just going to question it. So my approach generally, if someone approaches me and asks to include senior IEEE membership in an EB1 case, we just tell them, look, we aren't going to include that in your case. The simple fact being is we don't want a weaker criteria or a weaker evidence to take away from the amazing other parts of your profile that really showcase who you are in your field of expertise. Personally, I don't think things like that should take away from the whole, or like if you judged a science fair for some high school students, I don't think that should take away from your overall profile. You're still incredible, and it's awesome that you're helping out in those other places. USCIS will question those things though. So we generally tend to leave things out that we think are going to hurt a case. And this is a criteria, to be very honest, where I tend to leave a lot of things out that clients initially think will work for their EB1 case. So when you're going out there looking for memberships that work, try to be members of memberships that really highlight who you are in your field and really showcase that you're at the top of your field, possessing sustained international and national acclaim. And just remember, really, the number one question, in my opinion, that USCIS is going to ask about this criteria really, really comes down to, did the membership itself require that you possess outstanding contributions in your field of expertise in order for you to become a member? As long as you keep that in mind, you should be pretty safe approaching this criteria as part of your EB-1A package. Thank you.